carbs are making you fat. You've probably heard that before, maybe from a friend, your uncle, or that one fitness influencer who thinks bread is basically poison. And honestly, it makes sense. Cut carbs for a week and the scale can drop by 5 pounds. Sounds like pretty convincing evidence. Except that's not actually body fat, so if it isn't body fat, what the heck are people losing? Let's get into it. Let's imagine 2 people start dieting tomorrow. Let's call this guy Jack. Jack cuts carbohydrates. Let's call this guy Jerry. Jerry simply eats fewer calories while still eating carbs. After 1 week, Jack loses weight much faster. Naturally, everyone looks at that and says, see, carbs were the issue. But here's the problem. It probably wasn't because they lost more body fat. So what actually happened? Your body stores carbohydrates as something called glycogen. Think of glycogen like your body's rechargeable battery. When you eat carbohydrates, you charge that battery. When you exercise, your body uses that stored energy. But glycogen has one property that almost nobody talks about. It holds onto water. In fact, for every gram of glycogen your body stores, it also stores roughly 3 grams of water. So when someone suddenly cuts carbohydrates, their glycogen stores begin to shrink. And as those stores shrink, the water attached to them disappears too. That's why the scale can drop several pounds in just a few days. Not because they suddenly burned several pounds of body fat, but because they lost water. And that's an important distinction, because if carbohydrates really cause fat gain, water loss wouldn't explain what we're seeing. So if carbs aren't the culprit, what actually causes body fat to increase? Let's be honest, nobody has ever looked at a plain potato and thought, yep, that's what made me gain weight. Think about the foods people blame on carbohydrates. Pizza, cookies, ice cream, and pastries as proof that carbohydrates are fattening. But here's the interesting part, none of those foods are just high in carbohydrates. They're also packed with fat. In other words, carbs are getting blamed for a crime they didn't commit. The foods most people blame on carbs are usually combinations of carbohydrates and fat that are incredibly easy to overeat. Which brings us to the real driver of fat gain. At this point, you might be wondering, if calories are what matter, then why do low-carb diets work so well? The answer has nothing to do with carbohydrates themselves. When you remove an entire category of foods from your diet, you usually end up eating fewer calories. You're cutting out breads, desserts, sugary drinks, snacks, and countless processed foods all at once. That naturally makes it easier for many people to stay in a calorie deficit. So yes, low-carb diets can absolutely help people lose weight, but that doesn't mean carbohydrates themselves were the cause of the weight gain. It means the diet made eating fewer calories easier. There's one last misconception worth clearing up. People often hear that carbohydrates can be converted into body fat, and technically, they can, but not in the way most people imagine. Your body prefers to burn carbohydrates for energy. If there's extra, it stores them as glycogen. Only after those stores are full does your body begin converting meaningful amounts of carbohydrates into fat. So while it's technically possible, it's not the main reason people gain body fat. So no, rice isn't the enemy. Potatoes don't prevent progress. And bread certainly isn't poison. Carbohydrates are just fuel. The true problem is consistently eating more than your body needs. So the next time your uncle tells you carbohydrates make you fat, just remember, the scale can tell you that you lost weight, but it can't tell you what you lost. If you found this video helpful, consider liking, subscribing, and join the environment of exercise.